Jenny and Ben were about to get married. They wanted to book a hotel for their wedding ceremony in the party. So they went to a wedding planner to look at some options. She told them only 3 hotels were available for the day they wanted and showed them the pictures. Which one should they choose? Take a closer look at the 3rd floor windows of the first hotel. In the last window on the right, there's a creepy shadow of a monster that appears and disappears. 5 stars or not, no one would like to get married in a haunted place unless they're an Addams Family member. In the 3rd hotel only has 2 stars. It probably doesn't have the facilities to host a wedding, so the best choice is the 2nd hotel. Great choice, the wedding planner said, and you're in luck because they actually have a great discount offer. If you can answer this riddle correctly, you won't have to pay for the ballroom rental. Here it is. Those who have it, do not say it. Those who take it, do not know it. Those who know it, do not want it. What is it? Do you know the answer? It's fake money. The next day, Ben and Jenny went to the hotel to pick the best ballroom for their party. The hotel manager took them to 3 different rooms where they could host everything, from the ceremony itself to the dinner and after party. Which one should they pick? Do you see a little mouse hole in the corner of the first ballroom? The couple wouldn't want such uninvited guests at their party. As for the 2nd ballroom, the chandelier looks like it might fall down any minute. Not the safest option, so they should pick the 3rd ballroom. It was time for Ben and Jenny to pick the wedding menu. Since they were not paying for the venue, they wanted to spare no expense in serving food that the guests would never forget. That's why they called 3 different Michelin star chefs. Each of them prepared a different dish and presented them for a tasting. Which chef, and therefore which dish, should they go for? Even though the dish the 2nd chef made looks perfectly fine, do you see a rat's tail hanging from his chef's hat? There must be some ratatouille situation going on there. So that's a pass. The 3rd dish looks like spaghetti, right? Well, look again. Those are actually very thin snakes. Exotic flavors might not be the best option, so they better go with the classical burger that the first chef made. Before they made their wedding vows, Jenny had to say yes to a dress. So, she went to a couture store to check their wedding gown collection. She explained to the designer the style of the dress she wanted for her ceremony. The designer said he had just the perfect gown for her and would bring it to her if she answered his riddle correctly. He asked, if a gown takes an hour to dry, how many hours will it take 6 dresses to dry? It'll still take 1 hour because they'll all dry at the same time. Ben had one last item to buy on his wedding shopping list, and it was, what fastens 2 people, yet touches only 1? Can you figure out what it is? It's a wedding ring, of course! Ben headed to a jewelry store to get something blue for his bride. The store owner showed him 3 different wedding rings with blue gemstones. Which one should he buy? The 2nd ring has an engraving inside, so it must have belonged to someone else before. The gemstone on the 3rd ring has a tiny crack in it. That can only mean it's made of glass or even plastic. So, Ben should buy the 1st ring with a sapphire. Next, Ben and Jenny were going to send out invitations. One print shop offered them 3 different versions of invitations. Which one should they choose? Do you remember the name of the hotel they booked? It was Sunrise Lodge, but the first invitation says Sunset Lodge. So this one won't do. And on the third invitation, their names are printed as Benny and Jen. That's not our couple, so they should choose the second invitation. Before the wedding, 3 of their friends paid them a visit. One of them brought a painting as a wedding gift, but all 3 claimed that they were the artist who had created it. 2 of them must be lying. Can you figure out who the actual artist is? Take a look at the signature on the painting. It says Denise. Now look at the third friend's necklace. It has the letter D, so she must be Denise, the artist who painted the painting. It was finally the day of the wedding, and Ben and Jenny's guests started to arrive. However, the hotel security spotted 3 suspicious-looking people who could be uninvited. Take a look at these 3 guys. Can you tell which one is not supposed to be at the wedding? Do you see the hotel wristbands that say Ben and Jenny, that the second and the third guys are wearing? That can only mean they are actually invited. So it's the first guy who's crushing the wedding. Sorry, dude, no free drinks for you. After the vows were exchanged, it was time to party. As Ben and Jenny were dancing, someone spilled their drink on Jenny's dress, but no one saw who it was. Jenny spotted 3 people who could have done it. Take a look at them. Can you tell who ruined her dress? The first guy has spots on his shirt that resemble stains from the spilled drink, but they are actually part of the pattern, so it can't be him. The third lady looks clean, but the hem of the second lady's skirt looks dirty, so it must be her who did it. After the ceremony ended, Ben and Jenny wanted to take a photo to capture the moment forever. But take a look at it. There's something strange about it. Can you spot what it is? Can you see a woman hiding behind the trees watching them? She is wearing a witch hat, but it's a wedding ceremony and not a costume party. Creepy. Right before leaving, Jenny suddenly vanished. Then the witch suddenly appeared in front of Ben and said, "You may only kiss the bride if you figure out with whom you really tied the knot." Ha ha! Then 2 Jennys appeared in front of Ben. Can you tell which one is his real wife? Remember the wedding photo? The Jenny on the left is the real one because her tattoo is on the same side as in the photo. Now that Ben and Jenny's wedding was over, phew, it was time for them to pick a honeymoon destination. They went to a travel agency to book a tour. The travel agent offered them 3 different holiday destinations: Ibiza, Cannes, and the Caribbeans. Which one should they go to? Have you noticed the weather forecast on TV in the office? It states that the weather in Ibiza is going to be windy in the upcoming days, and in Cannes, it's going to be rainy. So they should pick the Caribbeans and enjoy the sun. The travel agent said she could upgrade their plane tickets to business class for free. It would be her wedding gift to them. But they had to crack this riddle. What can travel around the world while staying in a corner? It's a stamp. Mary runs a beauty salon.
Hello.
She arrives at work in the morning and sees one odd thing. Can you spot what's wrong with this place? The mirror images of these 2 clients are swapped. Mary says hi to all employees, but there's one imposter among them. Can you tell who? This guy over here. Cutting hair doesn't require kitchen ladles.
Oh no!
One of the clients is unhappy about her haircut. She approaches Mary and demands her money back.
What?
Mary asks two of her best hairdressers, "Ladies, who did this haircut?" Nina says, "It was Sarah," and Sarah blames Nina. Can you guess who actually did the haircut? It was Sarah. The client's little purple hairs are still on her black dress. Mary is taller than Sarah, and Nina is shorter than Mary. We know that only one of the following statements is correct. 1. Sarah is taller than Nina. 2. Nina is taller than Sarah. 3. It cannot be determined if Nina or Sarah is the tallest. Can you guess which one? Statement 3 is correct. The only thing that we know for sure is that Mary is the tallest. If Nina and Sarah have different heights, one of the other statements is also correct. But if Nina and Sarah have the same height, none of the other two statements are correct. Mary walks around the beauty salon to check if everything's fine. Can you find any odd details in this picture? There's a snake hiding in this woman's dreadlocks. After work, Mary is visiting her boyfriend, Steve, at the police station.
Hello.
Steve is a detective. He just finished interrogating these 3 criminals. One of these guys is planning to escape tonight. Can you guess who? There's a nail file in this guy's cake, so he's the one who's planning to escape. Mary and Steve are having a romantic walk in the park late at night. Can you see anything weird here? There are 2 moons in the sky.
Oh my God!
Suddenly, a thief pops out of nowhere, grabs Mary's bag, and runs away.
Oh, no.
Steve follows him, but the thief runs into a nightclub and blends in with the crowd. The thief was wearing a mask, so Steve couldn't see his face. Can you help him catch the criminal? The thief was wearing a gold watch on his right hand, just like this guy. The next day, Mary is holding a workshop for hairdressers. There are 10 students in one classroom. Each person can see the entire room and everyone else. Mary wants to place a wig so that all but one person can see it. Where would you place the wig in the room? She should put the wig on anyone's head. Mary looks out the window and sees a football team in front of the beauty salon. Each guy is holding a sign with some inscription. Can you guess who the message is for? One of the football players is asking Emily out on a date. At the end of her working shift, Mary goes to the basement to check the drinking water supply. Suddenly, the door slams, and she has to find an alternative way out. Mary walks through a creepy basement and finds 3 doors. A tunnel behind the first door is on fire. Behind the second door, there are UV lamps. And behind the third door, there are angry tigers waiting to jump on Mary. Which door should she choose? The first one. She can use a couple of the drinking water bottles and put out the fire. There are 3 ladies waiting in line for a manicure, but one of them cannot get her nails done. Can you tell who? This lady. Take a look at the reflection. It's just a cardboard cutout. The working day is over at 8 p.m. All the employees go home and Mary remains alone. She puts all the cash in the safe locker and goes home too. In the morning, she returns and finds out that all the cash is gone. She calls the police, and they question 3 suspects. Nina, the hairdresser, says, "I finished with my last client at 6 p.m. and left right away." Emma, the cleaning lady, says, "I cleaned all of the studio after Mary left. Then I locked the door and went home. I didn't notice anything suspicious." Sarah says, I was waiting for my last client until 7:30, but he didn't show up. So I rescheduled the appointment for today and went home. Who's lying? Emma. Mary was the last person to leave the workplace yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Mary goes on a date to a restaurant. Her boyfriend brings her flowers and chocolates. In the morning, she wakes up with a severe allergy. She goes to the hospital. Doctors find out that she was poisoned, but they don't know what kind of antidote she needs. Mary needs to identify the source quickly, so she hires a detective. He questions everyone who could give the allergen to Mary. Steve, the boyfriend, says, "We had the same food and drinks in the evening. I don't understand how it could happen." Pizza guy says, "I brought her pizza yesterday, but it was all right for sure. No one else complained about anything." And Bella, Mary's bestie, says, "I think it's her boyfriend's fault. He called me and asked what kind of flowers Mary liked. Who caused Mary's allergy?" Bella. She advised Steve to give Mary allergenic flowers. Mary gets well and goes back to work. She arrives at her beauty salon and sees these 3 clients. Only one of them is a natural blonde. Can you guess who? The first lady has black armpit hair, and the third lady has dark roots and eyebrows. Therefore, they are not natural blondes. And this elegant lady with green hair has light eyebrows and eyelashes, which means she's the only natural blonde among these 3 people. Suddenly, all the lights in the beauty salon turn off. Thankfully, in a few seconds, the light is back again. But Emily yells, "Someone stole my chocolate bar!" Mary interrogates 3 suspects. Emily's client says, "That wasn't me. I just got nail polish applied. And I'm still waiting for it to dry." Nina says, "I'm afraid of the dark, so when the lights went out, I just froze." And Angela says, "Someone pushed me in the dark and I fell on the floor." Who took the chocolate bar? Angela. She has crumbs on her cheek. Steve wants to give Mary a legendary gift for her birthday, but he has absolutely no idea what to get her. He decides to sneak into her laptop and check out her shopping cart. Mary goes to the bathroom and Steve sneaks into her room and turns on the laptop. It requires a password, but Steve doesn't know it. Luckily, there's a note next to Mary's laptop saying 6226. Sam tries it, but it doesn't work. Can you crack the password? Steve should try 222-222-66. Mary puts her stuff in the storage room and leaves for a while. When she returns, she notices that someone has stolen her bag. The manager calls the police and locks the doors. A policeman comes over and identifies 3 suspects. The hairdresser had a live stream with her Instagram followers. The manicurist says that she was focused on her work. And the cleaner says that he was washing the floor and he didn't notice anyone suspicious. Have you guessed who the thief is? The hairdresser. Take a look at her earrings. She left one of them at the crime scene. Mary gives her student Nancy a tricky task. She gives her 3 boxes. Each of the boxes contains hair extensions of a certain color and 2 statements. In one of the boxes, 2 statements are false. In the other boxes, both statements are true. Let's open up the first box. The 2 notes say, 1. Don't use this color. 2. Don't take the color from the second box. The 2 notes from the second box say, 1. Don't use the color from the first box. 2. And take the color from the third box. And finally, the notes in the third box say, 1. Don't use this color. 2. Take the color from the first box. Which color should Nancy choose to pass the test? Nancy should choose the color from the third box.
Several birds landed on trees, one bird for one tree. But in this case, one of them didn't have a tree of its own. Then they regrouped, with 2 birds sitting on one tree. After this, one tree was left. How many birds and trees are there? There are 4 birds and 3 trees. Look at these 4 people in a grocery store. Can you figure out who's going to steal a watermelon? It's the man with a soccer ball. It seems as if he's holding something heavy. It must be the watermelon disguised as a soccer ball. You wake up and find yourself in a locked room without windows and only one door. You look around and notice a table. There's a piece of paper, a knife, and several inflated balloons lying on it. You pick up the note. It reads, "To get out of here, you must puncture a balloon with a knife. But if the balloon bursts, you'll stay here forever." What should you do to make a hidden door open in one of the walls? You should deflate one of the balloons. After that, you can easily puncture it with a knife. You're walking along the beach and spot an expensive-looking watch in the sand. There are only 3 other people on the beach. Who does the watch belong to? This guy's watch is in his pocket. The tan line on this girl's wrist doesn't match the shape of the watch. The watch must belong to this elderly lady. You've got a sack filled with coffee beans. You need to use this coffee to completely fill 2 other sacks of the same size. How do you do it? Put one empty sack into the other and fill them with coffee. 3 young men came to a coffee shop to prepare for their final exam. A waiter came up to them and asked, "Does everyone want coffee?" The first guy said, "I don't know." The second man answered, "Nah, I don't know." And the third one answered, "Yes." Can you figure out what the first 2 guys ordered? All young men ordered coffee. Each of them wanted to have this drink, but the first 2 couldn't know if it would be everyone's choice. If the first 2 guys hadn't wanted coffee, they'd have simply said no. So when the third guy heard his friend's replies, he figured out that both of them wanted coffee. And since he was going to get a cup, he said yes. You have to think outside the box to crack this one. 1 is to 3 as 3 is to 5, and 5 is to 4. And 4 is the magic number. Can you figure out the pattern? The word 1 has 3 letters. The word 3 has 5. And the word 5 has 4 letters. But the word 4 has 4 letters in it. And whatever number you try, eventually you'll come back to 4, and the game will end there. Vincent got locked in a room with no windows and only one massive door. There's a panel with several buttons on the left and another one with a hint on it on the right. There's also a clock on the wall above the door. Which button should Vincent press to get out of the trap? The green triangle. The numbers on the panel represent hours. If you connect them on the clock face, you'll get a triangle. Add this number to the same one and multiply the result by 4. Then divide it by 8 and you'll have the very first number again. What number is it? It can be any number. You can try it out to make sure. Look at these women attentively. Which one seems to be suspicious? It's the one on the right. The woman on the left was just adding some ketchup to her dish. See that bottle? But look at the pie the woman on the right is holding. There's a smartphone peeking out of the pie. What's it doing there? It's very suspicious. The police knocked on Michael's door late in the evening. They had a search warrant. They accused the man of stealing a big sum of money from a supermarket. Mike claimed that he hadn't left the house all day, but one of the detectives saw something in his living room, and it led to the man's arrest. What was it? Look at the date on the receipt lying on the table. It's the same as the date on the calendar, which means Michael lied about not leaving his house that day. Look at these guys attentively. Can you tell which one has drawn the graffiti? It's the guy on the left. He has some spray paint on his hoodie. An ant is 2 inches away from its home. With every next step, it covers half the distance to the entrance. How many steps will the insect have to take to reach its destination? The ant will never reach the door because every time it'll travel only half the distance. Now, how about solving some rebus riddles? This is the first one for you. High, 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 high. That's high five. The next one, noon good. What's this? That's how you greet people. Good afternoon. Okay, now try this one. Way, progress. It's progress underway. Now let's check how attentive you are. Try to figure out what's wrong in the following images. There's no way anyone can wear those blue shoes. They're both left ones. How about this one? This horse looks rather natural among kangaroos, but it doesn't belong there. What's wrong in this picture? Why would a barn have a chimney? I suspect something is missing in this picture. Can you figure out what exactly? The bus doesn't have side mirrors and windshield wipers. Detective Lucas was called to investigate an accident. A car crashed into a store window and smashed the glass. There are 2 suspects. Both of them deny their involvement. Detective Lucas doesn't need much time to figure out who the culprit is. Do you know the answer too? It's the owner of the blue car. The pattern on its tires is the same as in front of the store. Detective Brown was having her morning coffee in a cafe when she heard a car screeching to a halt, then some loud shouting. She ran outside and spotted a man on the ground. His bicycle was lying nearby. There was also a car sitting next to the man. Detective Brown helped the cyclist up. The car driver came up to them. The cyclist exclaimed, "He hit my bike with his car, making me crash." But the driver answered, "I saw him losing control of his bike in the mirror. I left my car to check on him." Detective Brown immediately understood who was lying. Can you figure it out? Strangely, the car doesn't have side mirrors, and all that stuff in the back seat blocks the view of the road, so the driver couldn't have seen anything in his rearview mirror either. He's lying. A man wearing a hat, a bandana covering his face, and dark sunglasses robbed a bank. The police have 3 suspects. Look at them and try to figure out which one is the criminal. Usually, people tie bandanas under their ears. But in this case, the bandana covers the robber's ears. It probably hides something that distinguishes the man from other people. The criminal must be that man with only one ear. When Louisa entered the office, she noticed that her colleague Anna was very upset. It was the beginning of the working day, but someone had already stolen her purse. Only those who worked in the company could get into the office. Louisa questioned her colleagues. Maria, who worked in IT, said she'd been fixing somebody's computer. Jane, the secretary, answered she'd been on the phone with some clients. Andrew, a sales manager, said,
"I've just returned from a 3-hour-long meeting. I'm exhausted."
"Can you figure out who took the purse?" Andrew, the working day's just started. How could he come back from such a long meeting? Today, I'm going to test your attention to detail with short but tricky puzzles. Do you have what it takes to find all the oddities in them? Let's check. You can see 2 women in the elevator. One works in this building, while the other came here for an interview. Can you guess which one works here? The woman on the right has a name tag on her jacket, while the one on the left has none. Can you spot an odd pineapple here? It's this one in the corner. It has 3 leaves, while all the rest have 4. Okay, let's make it harder this time. Do you notice anything weird in this picture? Hurry up! A tap coming right out of the tree doesn't look right, and a purple coconut looks sort of off, right? You've got 3 desserts before you, but only one of them is safe to eat. Can you choose the right one? The strawberries with whipped cream may seem delicious, but those tiny flies scream that this dessert is off. Next, you've got a muffin, but there's a worm in the cherries on top of that muffin. So, ice cream is the safest option. Now let's see how sharp your eyes are. How many numbers can you see? The numbers on the screen are 1, 2, 3, 7, 5, 0, 8, 6, 9. Look at these 3 paintings and try to tell which one is fake. The second one, it's labeled as having been painted in 1950, but there's a lion looking at a smartphone in it. How could there be smartphones back then? You're lost in the woods, cold, and so very hungry. Suddenly, you walk out to a clearing where you see 3 cozy-looking houses. Check your survivor's instinct. Which one do you think is safe to enter? The house on the left has a big lock on its door, and its windows are boarded up. There's just no way you can get in. The second house looks safe at first glance, but look at the snow. Bare footprints are leading to its porch. It wouldn't be nice to become a dinner for a hungry bear now, so your safest bet would be the third house. Who's not very smart out of these 2 guys? Well, giving your cat a wash from time to time isn't that bad, although the kitty sure wouldn't like it, so the guy on the left is doing fine. As for the one on the right, look at the pet food package in his hands. He's giving his dog cat's food. This stuff shouldn't be confused. Can you spot what's wrong with this image? The woman sitting in the armchair has two different slippers on her feet. The painting on the wall seems to be from two different time periods at once. There's a Victorian-era man with a digital camera hanging from a strap on his neck. Which of these three pictures has something wrong in it? The second one. The girl in it is eating her soup with a fork. One of the kids in the picture snuck out of the bedroom through the window at night and came back. Who was it? The one in the lower right corner still has their shoes on. One of these people going abroad is suspicious. Who? The woman on the right is going to Indonesia, but she's got a warm coat and a scarf packed in her suitcase. Are you willing to bet who's going to win in this rope pulling contest? If you placed your bet on the right-hand team, you've got it. There's more than one person on their side. They're just hidden outside the frame. Can you figure out how many interviews this guy already attended this month? Oh, no. He's done 5 out of 6. There are 6 post-it notes on the calendar, but a little movable square indicates the current date is on the 26th. His next interview is on the 28th. This room has something wrong, but I can't see it. Can you? There's a bird in the fish tank. Which hand is the odd one out? It's the third one, the only right hand here. The rest are lefts. There are 3 people in the science lab, but one of them is not who they want the others to believe they are. Who is it? It's the guy on the right. He's wearing a fake ID badge on his lab coat. This hall is full of extravagantly dressed guests, but one of them is more extravagant than the rest. They're a ghost. Can you spot them? Look at the woman on the left. Her feet are almost transparent. She must be the ghost. This one will require both your observation skills and logic. Which of the 2 teapots can hold more tea? The one on the left is taller, but the one on the right is broader, so they can hold an equal amount of tea. Still, the taller one also has its nose at the same level as the broader one, which won't allow it to be filled to the brim, so the right teapot can hold more tea. Which one of these 3 people came to this cafe not alone? It's the girl behind the table in the middle. She has 2 cups of tea in front of her. One of these 3 partygoers has recently escaped prison and hasn't gotten rid of all the evidence. Can you figure out who it is? It's the guy on the right. He still has handcuffs hanging from one of his hands. An art exhibition owner has sold a painting to a private collector. He said it was a work of an unknown 18th century artist. But the next day, the disgruntled buyer returned the picture to the exhibition owner and demanded his money back. Can you tell why by looking at the picture? Well, there shouldn't be an airplane in the painting if it was genuinely from the 18th century. Someone broke into a house in a rich neighborhood and got away with a lot of valuables. The police had a suspect and stopped by his home. The suspect said he hadn't left his home since the day before, but the police officers knew he was lying. Can you guess why? Look at the helmet on the bike's handlebar. It's upside down. Since it was raining so hard, it would have been already filled with water to the brim if it hadn't been hanging like this since the day before. A police officer approached a man sitting in a car parked next to a hotel's front door and issued a parking ticket. The man was outraged, saying he'd been there for no more than 2 minutes, and the sign said 5 minutes of staying was allowed. Still, the officer was adamant that the man wasn't telling the truth. Why? There had been a heavy snowfall and just too much snow on the man's car hood and roof. If he had arrived just 2 minutes before, the snow would have been blown away by the wind or melted. There are 3 passports before you, but only 2 of them are real. Which one is fake and why? The right one is fake. Passport photos should be taken against a white background, and this one has something else in it. Which of these 2 people here is asking for trouble? Surfing is not the safest of sports, but if this girl is a professional surfer, she's fine. The man with loud music coming out of his speaker isn't safe though. Loud sounds such as shouting or music can cause an avalanche in the mountains. Jason says he's just returned from a trip to Antarctica and he's showing his friends photographs taken there. They seem alright, but one of Jason's friends thinks he's lying. Why? Look at Jason's face. He has tan lines from the sunglasses.
Psst. Share in the comments how many of these riddles you will answer correctly. Samantha and Jack got stranded on a tiny uninhabited island. They had no radio or cell phones, so they couldn't inform rescuers about their dire situation. There were no trees on the island, so they couldn't make a smoke signal, and all around them was just sand and rocks. Suddenly, Samantha noticed a plane circling the sky in search of them. Unfortunately, it was flying too high, and the pilot couldn't see them. That's when she got a bright idea. Soon after, the plane picked them up. What was Samantha's idea? To use rocks to spell out SOS on the sand. Detective Cooper needed to find out the very last piece of missing information in a case he had been dealing with lately. He finally got to the office where secret documents were hidden. To open the door, he needs to choose the right button. There are 3 of them, a yellow one, a green one, and a blue one. Which one should the detective choose? The detective needs to choose the blue button. It's pretty worn out, so it must have been used many times. Plus, there's a small note with a warning. The green button is for an emergency, and the yellow one shuts all the doors and turns off the lights in the whole building. Wow, I want one of those. One day, Amanda thought her boyfriend Eric had a secret from her. To find out what it was, she needed access to his laptop. She had no idea what the password was, but luckily, there was a post-it note right on his desk. However, she needed to decipher the pass. Apple, man, dawn. Can you crack this code? Right, it's Amanda. Her name is the code. By the way, the secret he was hiding was the birthday present Eric had been choosing for her. Well, that's what you get for snooping. Jack and Jim agreed to say yes all day long to all questions. If one of them doesn't say yes to a question, he automatically loses and must give $100 to his friend. Jim realized there was one question nobody could say yes to. What question was it? Jim realized nobody could say yes to the "Are you asleep?" question. Jim waited until Jack took a nap and recorded a video in which Jack replied with a snoring but not yes to Jim's question. Seems like a cheap shot. Jason is a shop assistant in a department store. At the moment, there are 3 people in a fitting room he's assisting. Jessica, the girl, is wearing a green dress. Sean, a man wearing a leather jacket and skinny jeans. And Alex, the man who's currently taking a larger pair of jeans that Jason brought him. One of the clients is an alien. Jason has to figure out who it is. It's Alex. Take a closer look at his feet. Only a reptile or an alien could have such feet. Julian needed to find a very important document he'd lost. He looked through all the papers and finally found something that looked like the document he actually needed. However, a couple of seconds later, he realized there were 4 copies of this document looking precisely the same, or not. Can you guess which one is the real document? It's the one in the upper left corner. It has a stamp and a signature, and it says Agreement. The one next to it looks similar, but it has a spelling mistake. It says Agreedment. The rest of the copies lack either a stamp or a signature. Mr. and Mrs. Jones are fond of art and love collecting rare and expensive pieces. Once they had to go on a business trip, and when they came back home, they realized something precious was missing. They instantly called the police, but the officers were confused because no painting was taken. Why were Mr. and Mrs. Jones worried then? A frame was missing. In fact, it cost much more than many art pieces, as it was encrusted with gems. Mary was walking in the woods and suddenly saw a really fancy castle. It was getting late, and she thought she might ask for a stay there overnight. It was a wicked troll's castle, and he really didn't like intruders. Mary was captured and locked in a dark room with 2 guards. Still, the troll gave her a chance to break free. There are 2 doors in the room. One door leads to freedom, and the other is locked. The guards know which door will set Mary free. One of the guards always tells the truth, while the other always lies, and Mary doesn't know who it is. She can ask just one question to one guard only. What question should she ask? If Mary says, "If I ask your colleague to show me the way to freedom, what door will it be?" No matter what the guard replies, they will point at the locked door. The one that lies will show the wrong door, and the one that doesn't lie will show the wrong door too, since it would be chosen by the one who lies. This way, Mary knows the wrong door, and she needs to select the other one. One man went to his friend's party and told his wife he'd be back before sunrise. He shaved and left home. He returned, as promised, before sunrise, but he was sporting a long, thick beard. How come? The man and his wife live in a place with polar nights that last for several months. Anthony, the financial director of a big company, finally persuaded new partners to sign a super important agreement. He then put this document into a folder and left it on the table in his office. When he arrived at work the following day, the folder was gone. Anthony gathered all the employees in the office at the time and questioned them. The cleaning lady said she had been busy washing the floor and hadn't paid attention to anything around. The designer explained that he hadn't left his working place even once. What's more, being an artist, he didn't have any interest in agreement documents. The accountant admitted that he had entered Anthony's office to have some documents signed, but once he noticed there was no one inside, he immediately left. Who took the folder with the agreement? It was the designer. Anthony never mentioned which folder was gone. How would he know that the missing folder had an agreement inside? Eric wears either only black or only white socks. One morning, he was in a hurry to get ready for an important meeting. Suddenly, the power goes out. The guy has 10 white and 10 black socks in his drawer, but all of them are mixed. He doesn't want to look silly at work wearing different socks. If it's completely dark in the room and Eric can't see anything, how many socks should he pull out of the drawer to get himself 2 matching ones? Three socks are more than enough. In a set of 3 socks, he's bound to have 2 of the same color. Jane told her boss someone had taken the documents she had prepared for the meeting. She added that she had noticed someone come in wearing a smart suit, gloves, and a black mask. This person also had 3 rings on their fingers. The boss didn't believe her. Why? She said the person was wearing gloves. Then how did she see 3 rings on their fingers? Jane must have simply forgotten to print those documents out. On a nice warm day, Vivian, who lived in a town on the seashore, decided to go for a hike alone. But after hours of trekking, she ended up in a section of the forest she wasn't familiar with. Before her, there were 3 paths. One path had bare footprints leading away. Another had human footprints. And the third one was right by the river. Which one should Vivian take to find her way? The river path. Since she lives in a coastal town, the river mouth most likely ends up in the sea. That way, she could figure out where she was. So now it's your turn. Count 'em up. How many correct answers do you have?
For several days, a large werewolf has been scaring the residents here. You know that the werewolf has a wife, and she's the only person who can calm the monster down and help him return to his human form. You have found 3 girls. Each of them might be the werewolf's wife you're looking for. You ask his wife to approach him, but none of the girls admits she's the one you need, so you have to make your own choice. Do you see some wool on the girl's clothes? It's the wolf's fur, which means she's the wife. She walks up to the monster, hugs it, and the werewolf turns into a human. You're hungry. You drop by a pizzeria. The owner of the restaurant says that someone has taken all his weekly earnings from the safe. The thief wore gloves and left no fingerprints. The video cameras were turned off. You know this pizzeria has had several similar incidents over the past year. Every time, the insurance company paid the owner the entire amount that had been stolen. You're sure the owner took his own money to use the insurance again. Take a look at the office and prove that the owner is guilty. Look at the air vent. Behind the grated hatch, you can see the bundles of the stolen money you've been looking for. Suddenly, someone shoved Stacy into the water. Down in the Sea Kingdom, Stacy met Neptune. He was sitting on his throne, surrounded by 3 mermaids. Neptune asked Stacy to return the pearl necklace to his wife. She had recently lost it, and Luke found the necklace on the shore. Can you guess which mermaid is Neptune's wife? The third one. She's the only one who's wearing an engagement ring. When Stacy gave the necklace to its rightful owner, Neptune snapped his fingers. His guards brought Luke. Neptune said, "I'll let you go home safely, but you have to choose the right door." There were demons behind the first door. They were ready to eat anyone who dared to come in. There was lava all over the floor of the room behind the second door. And finally, there was a laser beam that could cut through anything it touched behind the third door. Which door should Stacy and Luke choose? The third one. They can crawl under the beam without touching it. You were in a hurry and forgot to lock the apartment door while leaving. Someone got in and locked the door from the inside, and you had to use the key to open it. You see a human silhouette standing in the shadows and realize that you know this person. Who is it? It's the woman who asked you to help her brother. She was wearing a red bracelet. The silhouette has the same accessory. I came here to thank you in person. The door was open, but you weren't at home, the woman says. A mysterious biologist invites you to his home for dinner. He takes you down to the basement and puts 3 plates of weird items on the table. One has wild mushrooms with white gills. The second is filled with castor beans. The third has some fish brains. Which one is safe to eat? The plate of fish brains is the only dish that isn't poisonous. Someone got into Matthew's house during a severe rainstorm and took a lot of expensive stuff. The man called the police. They came over and started to interview the neighbors. Nicole said she lived alone and worked from home. She was inside the whole day. Jerry explained he was a chef in an Italian restaurant. He came back from work only half an hour ago. Sophia told the police she hadn't left home because she was ill. Who was the intruder? It was Nicole. She claimed that she'd been inside the entire day, but there was a wet umbrella in the corner. Kim and Ashley are best friends. They decided to spend summer vacation in Italy together. They were very lucky to buy cheap plane tickets. Their flight was at 10 a.m. Unfortunately, when the girls arrived at the airport, they realized it was the wrong one. Now, they have 2 options. To take a high-speed train for $100 to go to the right airport, or stay here and buy tickets for a later flight for $400. What should they choose? The second option. Look at the clock on the wall. It's 9:55 a.m. The boarding for their flight is already over. They won't make it even if they take a high-speed train. Kim and Ashley bought new tickets. They went to the airport restaurant to drink coffee, but one weird detail scared Kim away. She suggested they should leave that place as soon as possible. What did Kim see? This woman over there is a zombie. Wow! How did she get through security? When it was time to finally board the plane, it turned out there were no more economy class seats left. Kim and Ashley were offered to fly in business class. There, the girls saw 3 people. When the flight attendant served them fresh juice, she whispered that Kim and Ashley were extremely lucky. They were about to travel next to a famous Italian billionaire. Can you guess which of these passengers is the billionaire? This glamorous lady is a good candidate, but it's very unlikely a billionaire will wear a 100% polyester coat. This guy's business suit is very elegant, but look at his shoes. They seem quite cheap and worn out. This funny gentleman must be the real billionaire. Although his outfit is rather casual, his gold watch looks very expensive. Once, a bank was robbed. The police suspected that one of the bank security guards had helped the criminals. Detective Justin had to question 3 of them. The first security guard told him he had heard some shouting and rushed there, but by the time he arrived, the criminals had already been gone. The second security guard explained he had been drinking a cup of coffee at that moment and hadn't even heard anything. And the third guard said he had run after the thieves, but he had to lace his boots. Without a second thought, he crouched near an emergency exit. At that very moment, the door opened and hit him on the head. When he came back, the criminals had been gone. Justin immediately understood which guard was guilty. Who was it? It was the third guard. All emergency doors open outwards for safety reasons. The police have been looking for Kyle for 2 days. The guy went hiking and never came back. Finally, he was found. Someone had hit him on the head and left him lying in the bushes. Kyle only managed to say, "Friend," in a weak voice, and lost consciousness. The police officers had 3 suspects, all of them Kyle's friends. Zachary said he spent the last days at work getting ready for a conference. Jesse told the detective he'd sprained his ankle and had been in bed for 4 days. And Billy explained he'd been to New York for business. The man even showed the police officers his boarding pass. Who's behind the accident with Kyle? Police immediately noticed that Billy had showed just one boarding pass. Then how did he get back from New York? His story sounds fishy. Uh-oh. Tommy was exploring old caves outside the city when he got trapped in a mysterious dungeon. There were 3 ways out, but only one of them was safe. Behind the first door, a fire was raging. Behind the second door, there was acid rain which could melt any substance within seconds. Behind the third door, there was a huge brown bear that hadn't eaten for 2 years. Which way should Tommy choose? Tommy should choose the third way. No animal can go for 2 years without food and survive. Barely, haha. It was a stormy day and it had been raining for several hours straight. A car accident happened in a tunnel. The yellow car crashed into the red one. The driver of the yellow car said it had been raining so heavily he hadn't seen anything. So the accident wasn't totally his fault, but the police asked the man to stop lying and claimed it was all his fault. Why? The accident happened in the tunnel. It couldn't be raining there. Mrs. Cabell is the owner of a small company producing expensive designer cups. On Friday, when the working week was finally over, she got a call from her bank. The woman found out that someone had stolen all the money she had saved. Mrs. Cabell realized it must have been one of her workers. So she asked each of them what they had been doing that day. Sloan, a sales manager, said she'd been talking to their clients and looking for new ones. Atticus, a potter, said that he always made 1 cup a day, and he showed all the cups he had done that week. Sierra, a designer, said that she'd been working, but also admitted she hadn't really been productive that day because of some family issues. Who lied? Atticus, there are 5 working days in the regular week. The man said he made 1 mug a day, but he only showed 4 mugs. It means he missed 1 day of work. There was an incident in a secret laboratory. One of the scientists released a substance that turned people into vampires. Detective Reed arrived at the scene to interview 3 witnesses. The first scientist, Michael, said, "I stopped by the lab this morning to pick up some notes. The machines were working just fine, and I didn't see anyone. I took the papers and left." The second scientist, Lindsay, said, "I closed the lab at night. One of the PCs was faulty, but I was very tired and decided to leave it till the morning. Unfortunately, I overslept." And the third scientist, Jennifer, said, "I got up early and went to the lab to check the devices. No one seems to have entered the room. I fixed one of the computers and left." Which one of them was lying? Michael is lying. One of the computers was actually faulty, and Jennifer spent the whole morning fixing it. If Michael had walked into the lab, he would have known about it, or Jennifer would have noticed him. So he must have entered the lab after the others had already left. But why would someone release such a dangerous substance? Michael didn't want to confess, so Detective Reed decided to investigate the crime scene to find out who was behind this. Take a look at this picture. Is there anything suspicious? It looks like Michael dropped an ID card. And look, it doesn't belong to him. The name on the card is George Wilson. Let's ask him about the incident. Detective Reed went to Mr. Wilson's office to ask him about the incident. "Oh yeah, I gave my pass to Michael," Mr. Wilson said. "But that's only because I had left something in the lab. My glasses. I didn't have time, so I asked Michael to pick them up." Well, that's not a very clever excuse, but how can you prove the man is lying? There's an open glasses case on the table, and the glasses are inside. But Mr. Wilson, didn't you say that you left them in the lab? "Oh, did I say my glasses? Sorry, I meant my papers. I made this mistake because I asked my secretary Shirley to look for my glasses yesterday." Find something to prove Mr. Wilson is lying. There's a calendar on Shirley's desk. Yesterday was her day off. It's marked red. Mr. Wilson is lying. Mr. Wilson was arrested, but people have already begun to turn into vampires. Can you guess who's actually a vampire? The woman on the right. She's putting on her makeup, but do you see? She isn't reflected in the mirror. Meanwhile, those who haven't turned into vampires gather everything they might need to survive. Which of these people is more likely to stay alive? All these supplies won't protect the guy on the right from vampires. As for the girl on the left, she's stocked up on what she can to defeat the vampires. She has a higher chance of survival. Let's check out the subway. There are 2 women here. Which of them is not pregnant? The girl on the left is not pregnant. Look, her belly is of a very strange shape. That's because she has hidden her survival supplies under her clothes. Vampires decided to throw a party. Who among those present is actually an undercover human? The guy on the left is a human. He's wearing makeup and false teeth. Nikki is also trying to survive. She packed her things and decided to move to a neighboring town. But suddenly, a vampire charged at her car. He damages the vehicle and takes away some supplies. Fortunately, he doesn't manage to bite Nikki. She escapes. Nikki has to stay home. The next day, a young man knocks on her door and asks for help. Is it okay to let him in? Nope. He has the same scar on his cheek like the vampire from the day before. Nikki continues to hide at home. One day, some girl starts knocking on her back door. Please help! A pack of vampires is chasing me! Nikki opens the door. The girl is out of breath, but she manages to say, They're almost here! Can I come in? Is it safe to let her in? No! This girl is a vampire. Anyone in this situation would immediately run inside the house, but vampires can't come in without an invitation. Nikki was checking her house and suddenly noticed that there was someone in the attic. She approached the shadows. It was a father and daughter. Please don't kick us out. Sorry, we snuck in without permission. We've been trying to hide from the vampires. The father said, Is it safe to let them stay? Yes, firstly, they're sitting in the sun, but their skin seems to be okay. Secondly, they managed to enter the house without an invitation. That means they're humans. Nikki let them stay. Let's take a little break. Time for some quick riddles. Think fast. A vampire lived in a 1-story black cottage. He had a black cat, a black fish, a black computer, a black armchair, a black desk, and a black phone. Everything was black. What color was the staircase? There was no staircase in that house because it was a 1-story cottage. 3 vampires are walking fast. The first vampire says, 2 other vampires are walking behind me. The second one says,
1 vampire is walking behind me, and 1 is walking in front of me.
And the third one says, 2 vampires are walking in front of me, and 2 are walking behind me. How is that possible? These vampires are walking in circles. Humans, vampires, and werewolves gathered in one mansion. There are as many werewolves as there are vampires. There are as many vampires as there are humans. How many creatures are there if 3 of them are werewolves? There are 9 creatures in the mansion, 3 werewolves, 3 vampires, and 3 humans. Now let's go back to Nikki and her adventures. Nikki, Peter, and his daughter Becky decided to go to another town together. It takes 2 days to get there. They drove all day until night fell. Now they have 3 options. First, they can continue driving until the morning, despite the fact that they may meet a lot of vampires along the way. Second, they can spend the night in the nearest cave with bats. And third, they can sleep in the car. Which option would be the safest for them? Sleeping in the car is a bad idea. Vampires can sneak up on them in the middle of the night. A night in a cave is also a bad option. Vampires can hide among these bats. The safest option is to keep driving. Although they'll probably meet vampires, they have a chance to survive if they drive faster. They drove really fast and managed to reach the city by the morning. But when they got out of the car, they discovered they were surrounded by vampires. To escape, they need to choose one of 3 roads. On the first road, there's a pack of vampires. They're coming straight at the guys. There are wild hogs on the second road. The third road leads through a dark alley with hundreds of bats. Which of these 3 ways is the safest? The second way is the best option because the sun illuminates it, so vampires can't follow Nikki and her new friends. Plus, these dogs don't look too unfriendly. The guys reach 3 stores. Now they need to decide which of the stores is safe to enter. Nikki, Peter, and Becky look through the windows to see what's inside. The first store is empty, but it seems to be full of traps. The second store is full of survivors, but they look dangerous. And the third store seems empty as well, but it's completely dark there, and you can't see anything except for dozens of bats. Where should Nikki lead her friends? The first store is the safest. If Nikki, Peter, and Becky notice these traps, then the chances are high they'll be able to avoid them. It's worth a try. There's a man in the city who's trying to survive by hiding among vampires. Nikki spent a week photographing vampires to figure out who he was. Will you be able to see who is actually human in these photos? You can see this man has all 4 photos. In one of the photos, he's eating garlic bread, and in this one, his leg is exposed to the sun. He's only pretending to be a vampire. Nikki and the others decided to invite this man to join their group. The man was delighted and said that his name was Douglas. He was a journalist looking for safe places for people. He suggested creating a password that only humans could figure out. They came up with this one: HAWUH. Can you guess why? If you look at the reflection of this word in the mirror, you will see Huwan, or Huwan. Flip the letter W and you get the word human. But only those who get reflected in the mirror will be able to solve this puzzle. Nikki and her friends settle down in this town. Can you guess which of these houses belongs to Nikki, in which Peter and Becky live, and in which Douglas has chosen? House number 1 belongs to Peter and Becky. There are 2 bicycles next to it. House number 2 belongs to the journalist. Do you see his equipment? And the remaining house, house number 3, belongs to Nikki. I have a math workout for you today, but first, let's have a little warm-up. How many ducks do you see in this picture? Don't forget about the hidden ones. There are 15 ducks. Did you find them all? Okay, now count all the flowers. Right, there are 17 of them. Can you spot 3 differences between these photos? Here they are. And another one. There are 3 differences again. Do you see them? Okay, here they are. Good job. Okay, now a bit of math for you. Look at this picture. The only number multiplied by itself that gives 25 is 5, so this shape equals 5. This way, the other shape from the second equation is 4. 4 and 6 make 10, so the red circle equals 6. Then, 5 multiplied by 6 gives us 30. This one is similar, but a bit harder, so be very attentive. Okay, 3 pairs of sneakers make 30. Then 1 pair equals 10. Then 1 cat with a whistle must be 5. In this case, 2 whistles equal 4, so 1 whistle is 2. Now the last one. A pair of sneakers is 10. We know that a cat with a whistle is 5, but this kitty doesn't have a whistle. But since a whistle is 2, the cat without a whistle must be 3. And a whistle equals 2. So, it's 10 plus 3 multiplied by 2, which is 16. Ava and Dakota are sisters. When Dakota was 18, Ava was half her age. Now that Dakota is 26, how old is Ava? When Dakota was 18, Ava was 9, so the age difference between the sisters is 9 years. If Dakota is 26 now, then Ava is 17. When Polaris was 16 years old, her mother was 39. If Polaris's mom is twice her daughter's age, how old is Polaris? The age difference between Polaris and her mother is 23 years. That means now, Polaris is 23 and her mom is 46. Yvonne had a big collection of CDs. One day, she decided to clean up her house and counted that she had 172 CDs. She sold them all except for 7 CDs of her favorite singer and 5 CDs of her favorite band. How many CDs does Yvonne have now? Well, if she gave up all but 7 plus 5, it leaves her with 12 CDs. In PE class, all students were standing in a circle. If the 5th student was exactly opposite the 12th student, how many students were in the circle? Between student number 5 and student number 12, there are 6 other students. If these two are opposite each other, then on the other side between them, there are also 6 students. This makes 14 students in the circle. Danica owns a candy store. She sells candy for $0.12 a dozen. How many candy pieces can you get if you have $1? $0.12 for a dozen mean that one candy costs 1 cent. So if you have $1, you can get 100 candies. For casting a spell, Flora should put these stones in the correct order. She has 4 of them: purple, green, red, and blue. The instruction says, 1. The red one only has 1 stone next to it. 2. The green and purple stones aren't next to each other. 3. The green stone is the last one. Can you help Flora? If the red stone only has one other stone next to it, then it's either the first one or the last one. But since green is the last one, then red is the first one. If the green and purple stones aren't next to each other, then there's the blue stone between them. So, the correct order is red, purple, blue, and green. It was midday. Kaylin was exploring a big local forest. She found an abandoned mansion and entered it. The door closed behind her back and wouldn't open.
Oh no!
Kaylin got trapped inside. There were 3 other doors leading to freedom, but there was a catch. Behind the first door, there was a huge pit that would take her miles underground. Behind the second door, there was a magnifying glass that concentrated sunlight and burned everybody and everything that entered. Behind the third door, there was a hungry and dangerous lion that would eat anybody and anything that entered.
Uh-oh.
How can Kaylin escape? Kaylin should wait until sunset. When the sun goes down, the second door with the magnifying glass won't be dangerous anymore. Amelia, Belle, Chloe, and Della are identical quadruplets who always prank people. One day, one of the girls' teachers had to let Amelia leave the class early. She had a doctor's appointment, but the woman wasn't sure which girl was Amelia. The quadruplets had decided to help her. Here is what they said. Amelia is one of the girls standing in the middle. No, Amelia is one of the girls standing on the sides. I'm Amelia. I'm not Amelia. 3 girls lied and 1 told the truth. Who is Amelia? If Amelia is the first girl, then 2 girls told the truth, the second and the fourth ones. If Amelia is the second girl, then the first and the fourth girls told the truth. If Amelia is the third girl, then the first and the third ones told the truth. But if Amelia is the fourth girl, then only the second girl told the truth. So, Amelia must be the fourth girl. Esme was having a walk in the forest and got lost. She found a witch's house, petted her black cat, and asked the witch to send her home. The witch wanted to play a game. If Esme won, she'd send her home. But if Esme lost, she'd have to stay with the witch forever.
We'll be saying numbers between 1 and 10. The next player will have to choose a number that's between 1 to 10 greater than the previous one. The first person to say 50 wins. You can start.
How can Esme win? If she wants to say 50, she needs the witch to say a number between 40 and 49. So, before 50, she has to say 39. If she wants to say 39, the witch has to say a number between 29 and 38. So, Esme has to say 28, and before that, 17, and before that, 6. So Esme must start with 6 and then say 17, 28, 39, and 50. Cassidy woke up in a dungeon and couldn't remember what happened to her. She needed to get out, but the door was locked and required a password. Can you guess what the password is? Every next number is made by moving the last digit of the previous 4 to the front. So, the password must be 4728. Mrs. Davies is an elderly lady telling a story of her life.
After I lived 1/4 of my life, I got my first car. I married 1/12 of my life later. 1/6 of my life later, I started a business. 1/4 of my life later, I got my first granddaughter. She just turned 18.
How old is Mrs. Davies? Let's say Mrs. Davies is X years old. 1/4 of her life, till she gets her first car, X is 4. Then we add 12 till her marriage. X till opening her business, 4 till the birth of her granddaughter, and finally 18 years from then till now. It should all be equal to x. If you solve this equation, you'll figure out that x is equal to 72. So, Mrs. Davies must be 72 years old. Esme was walking in the forest, and you know what? She didn't get lost this time. She knew how to get home, but the other road led to the witch's house, and the girl recently came up with a cool riddle for the witch. So, Esme decided to pay her a visit. She offered a deal. If the witch couldn't solve her riddle, Esme would get her cat. The witch agreed, and Esme gave her a square piece of paper, 4 inches by 4 inches, with a total area of 16 square inches.
Turn it into a square with a total area of 8 square inches without a ruler.
How can the witch do it? The witch should fold the 4 corners of the square towards the middle. This way, she'll get a square that is exactly twice as small as the original one. Apparently, the witch gets to keep her cat this time. There's a box filled with balls of different colors, 5 red ones, 8 blue ones, and 11 purple ones. Allison has a tricky task. Blindfolded, she has to keep picking up balls until she's sure that she has balls of at least 2 different colors. What's the minimum number of balls she should pull out of the box? In the worst-case scenario, Allison will be picking up balls of the same color until there are no more of them left in the box. The majority of balls are purple, so if she picks up a purple ball every single time, it'll be 11 balls. And only after that will she get a ball of a different color, so she should pick up 12 balls. Like every morning, Daphne went to her favorite local cafe to get her coffee and breakfast sandwich. She left the cafe after she'd paid. A few minutes later, she returned, looking anxious, because she had forgotten her wallet. Strangely, it was nowhere to be found. She called the police to report the incident. Nobody had left the store, so the thief was still there when the officer arrived. He started questioning everyone. Jenny, the cashier, said that Daphne was a regular customer, and she had known her for a long time. So, she would never steal her wallet, and she didn't see it after Daphne had paid. Andre was a tourist visiting the city for the first time. He said he'd come to the cafe because he'd wanted to try their famous muffins. She claimed he hadn't seen the wallet. He was busy trying to pick what type of muffin he should get at the time. And Harry worked as a store clerk. He said that he'd come there to grab a coffee, and he didn't see the wallet because he was pouring milk into his coffee. So who do you think stole the wallet? It was Harry, the store clerk, or should I say Harold. Do you see his name tag? He lied about his name when he ordered his drink. Also, even though he said he was pouring milk in his coffee, as you can see, it doesn't have any milk in it. Jessica was an aspiring actor, and she had a big musical theater audition that day. She left her house early in the morning to make it on time, but she had forgotten to take her sheet music with her, so she had to drive back. When she walked in, though, she saw her roommate lying on the floor unconscious. A nurse was standing beside her. She explained to Jessica that her roommate had been poisoned, but luckily, she'd had enough time to call an ambulance before she passed out. Jessica immediately realized something was wrong. She thanked the nurse for helping her friend and asked her if she could get her a glass of water or anything else. The nurse agreed, and Jessica hurried to the kitchen. There, she called the police saying, "There's a fake nurse in my house. She poisoned my roommate and tried to rob her." How did Jessica understand that? When she arrived at the house, there was no ambulance car in the driveway or in the street. And it's not like paramedics started using Uber. And you might have also noticed that the paramedic bag the nurse was holding was slightly open, and Jessica's roommate's jewelry was dangling out of it. Anna and Catherine are both influencers, but take a look at the latest photos they posted. Which of these ladies do you think is richer? Catherine is richer, of course. Just look at the number of likes on her photo. She has 27,907 likes. Anna, on the other hand, has 9,837, which means that Catherine has way more followers and must be earning millions. Annie managed to buy presents for everyone except her dad. She knew what everyone wanted, but her dad was kind of secretive and not the talking type. He was also not great with technology and never bought anything online, so there was no way she could sneak into her dad's computer and check the saved items in his shopping cart. But he always liked to make lists in his little notebook, and Annie was sure she might be able to find a wish list there. So she sneaked into her father's office one day to look for the notebook. It was nowhere to be found, but his study table had a locked drawer. She looked for the key around the room but couldn't find it anywhere. That's when 2 different sticky notes attached to 2 different books inside the bookcase caught her eye. The first note was attached to a psychology book and had P5487TH written on it. The second note was attached to a detective novel and said P21320TH. Annie immediately knew what the notes meant. Can you guess what she had to do? She had to open to page 548 in the first book and find the 7th word on this page. Then, she had to open page 213 in the second book and find the 20th word on that page. The words she found were under and desk. The girl immediately looked under the desk and found the drawer key taped to it. James was walking back to his apartment from work late at night. Suddenly, he was hit on the head and taken away. When he woke up, he found himself in a small room. He tried to escape, but the door was locked with a padlock. James tried to look for the key, but there was nothing in there but a window with strange-looking metal bars. Suddenly, he noticed something. It helped him to find the key. Do you see it too? One of the metal bars is different from the others. That one is the key. Giselle was camping in the forest during a night when the moon was full. After midnight, when she was making s'mores by a fire, she heard a loud howl. There was a werewolf in the forest, and it managed to find Giselle's tent because it smelled of food there. Thankfully, Giselle was not in her tent anymore when the werewolf arrived because she had already run away. Hiding behind a tree, she watched the creature eat her s'mores and tear up the tent. When the werewolf left before sunrise, the girl returned to her tent, but everything was ruined. There was no more food or water left. Her cell phone had run out of battery, so she couldn't call anyone. She started wandering through the forest, and soon she came upon a witch's house. When she walked in, she saw the witch and another lady. Giselle asked the witch if she could send her home. The witch agreed to help her on one condition. She would only send Giselle home if she guessed her sister's name. If not, she would turn her into a frog. Giselle knew the answer, but how? Did you notice that the witch's sister is wearing the same necklace around her neck as the werewolf? Well, Giselle did, and there's a name written on the necklace: Abigail. Zoe went to a security guard and reported that her gym bag was missing. She said she'd gone to the ladies' restroom after her dance cardio class. She was fixing her hair when someone came up from behind and pushed her. So she didn't see the person who had taken her bag. The security guard refused to check the footage from the security camera that was outside the restroom. Neither did he file a report. Why? Zoe said she was fixing her hair, so she must have been looking in the mirror. If she was telling the truth about someone sneaking up from behind, she would have definitely seen their reflection. So, Zoe probably lied so that she could sue them. Luckily, the security guard was super smart. Several women went missing in a small town. James Darcy and his police team had been searching for months, but they couldn't find the place where the women were kept. One day, when Sandra was jogging, she decided to use another route to get home. As she was passing an old cabin, she heard screams coming from its basement. She immediately called James Darcy to report it. James and his team arrived at the place and busted in. They found there 3 women. They all said that they had been locked in the basement for months, but James knew one of them was lying. The first woman said that her name was Tammy and that she had spent almost 8 months in the basement. The second woman claimed that her name was Hannah and that she had been there for almost 5 months. The third woman told him that her name was Allison and that she had stayed there for about 3 months. Can you tell who the liar is? Allison is telling the truth. Look at her. Her clothes are dirty. Her hair is greasy. Her roots have started to grow out. She definitely hasn't seen daylight for a long time. The same goes for Hannah. But look at Tammy. She looks clean. Her clothes look new. Her hair and makeup look fresh, so it must be her who is lying. David spent his summer break at a science camp that was at a big space facility. When the summer break ended and school started, he told his friends from the science club all about his camp adventures. He said that at the facility, he had found a secret room. And in there was a time machine. He stepped into it and pressed some buttons to test if it really worked. And it did. He traveled through time and was able to talk to Nikola Tesla, Chuck Berry, and King Aragorn. But one of his friends immediately called him out for lying. How did he know that David made up this whole thing? Well, even if David actually managed to travel through time, he might have been able to talk to Nikola Tesla and Chuck Berry, but definitely not King Aragorn, because he is a fictional character.
Elsa was 17 years old the day before yesterday. Next year, she'll turn 20.
Yay.
How come? It's possible if the present day is January 1st, while Elsa's birthday is on the 31st of December. The day before yesterday, on December 30, she was still 17 years old. Yesterday, on the 31st of December, she turned 18. Thus, this year, Elsa turns 19 and next year 20. Elsa and her sister Helga explore an old attic in their parents' house. It's very dark and dirty. After that, they go downstairs to have some lunch. Helga's face is all covered with dust, while Elsa's face is super clean. But still, only Elsa goes to the bathroom to wash her face. Why? Elsa noticed that her sister's face was dirty, so she thought her face must be dirty too. As for Helga, she saw that Elsa's face was clean and assumed that her own face was clean too. After lunch, Elsa and Helga go for a walk across an enchanted forest. They reach the riverbank, but the bridge is closed for repairs. The sisters notice 2 dwarfs fishing in a boat near the bridge. They agree to help the sisters, but their boat is very tiny. It can fit either one sister or 2 dwarfs. Luckily, they manage to solve this issue. Elsa and Helga cross the river on the same boat. How? Well, first of all, one of the dwarfs brought his fellow on the opposite bank. Then he headed back for the sisters alone. Helga got into the boat and crossed the river. She gave the second dwarf the boat, and he returned to the opposite bank. He picked his fellow dwarf and brought him to Helga. Then one of the dwarfs swam to Elsa and passed the boat to her. She crossed the river and joined Helga, and finally, the second dwarf returned to his fellow. Helga and Elsa keep on walking and get lost in the forest. There are 3 roads to the nearest town. The first route is filled with mutant plants which feed on humans. The second path leads through an ice cave with a hungry dragon frozen inside a huge ice cube. The third route leads through a village of fairies. Their magic makes humans lose their minds. Which way is safe? Well, the dragon is trapped inside the ice cube, so it's not that dangerous. Finally, the sisters reach the town. They're walking down the main street. Suddenly, someone throws an orange right at Helga's head. Elsa identifies the apartment from which the fruit fell out and goes there to complain. She knocks, and a young man opens the door right away. Elsa explains that her sister was hit by an orange that fell from his window. But the guy says, "I was washing my dog when you knocked. Only me and my pet live here, so you confused the floors." But Elsa didn't believe him. Why? According to the man, he was bathing his only pet, but the dog's hair is dry. Therefore, his story is fake. Elsa and Helga enter the local home decor shop. Helga takes a picture of her sister standing in front of the mirror. Can you spot anything odd in this photo? Take a closer look at the mirror. Elsa's hands are reflected wrong, as well as the sale poster behind her. She must be a vampire. Just kidding. The sisters continue exploring the shop, but suddenly Elsa begins to scream and runs away. That's because one of these ladies is not alive. Can you guess who? The first woman is an ordinary human. There's a mirror behind her. The third lady has a painting of herself in the background. And the second lady, who's looking over her shoulder, is a phantom. Her reflection in the mirror doesn't match the reality. Elsa decides to hide in a building nearby. Surprise! It's a pet shop. Elsa wanders around it and spots one weird detail. Can you see it too? The turtle is wearing sunglasses. The locals tell Elsa and Helga about a creepy werewolf who has been scaring the citizens for several weeks. They only know that this werewolf is a lady and she has a husband. He's the only person who can calm her down. Elsa finds 3 suspects who might be the werewolf's husband, but none of them admits it. Can you find him? He's the second guy. There are suspicious brownish hairs on his clothes, although his own hair is blonde. The next day, Helga has a birthday party. Elsa goes to the bakery to purchase a cake for her. She's late, so she rushes over and bumps into a waiter. Elsa hits her head and forgets what cake Helga asked her to buy. She remembers just 3 things. It shouldn't have any green elements, the cake frosting shouldn't include more than 1 color, and it must have at least 1 berry. Can you help Elsa find the correct cake? Elsa should take the 4th cake. It's a chocolate cheesecake, so it doesn't have anything green. The glazing is brown and is decorated with cherries. A perfect match. Elsa buys the cake and leaves. The bakery is located inside the highest tower in town. Elsa enters the elevator to go down, but she hits the wrong button and finds herself on the roof. She decides to take some pictures with the iconic huge clock installed at the top of this tower. Oops! Elsa drops her phone from the roof. She decides to leave, but someone has already locked the door, and the elevator won't work, so she's trapped on the roof. Luckily, Elsa can still change the time of the clock. What time should Elsa set on the clock to make someone notice and rescue her? If she sets 5:05 on the clock, it'll look like an SOS signal. Finally, Elsa escapes from the tower and heads to the parking lot. Here's her car. Can you figure out the number of the place where it's parked? '87. Elsa arrives home. Helga shows her vacation photos sent by her new boyfriend, Kyle. In this case, you can see Kyle, his friend Bob, and a humanoid robot, Neo. Neo is standing next to Bob. A person wearing the yellow mask is not a man. What color is Kyle's mask? According to the terms, only the third guy can be Kyle, so his mask is blue. The birthday party is going well. It's almost midnight, so Elsa goes to the kitchen and adds candles on the birthday cake. Suddenly, she remembers that the only lighter in the house is upstairs in her room. She leaves the cake at the table for a minute. Then Elsa returns and sees the cake smashed all over the floor.
Oh, no.
She questions 3 suspects. Lauren says, "I was in the living room all night. I don't know who did it." Wendy says, "I went outside to watch the full moon. It's so beautiful tonight." Kyle says, "I was shooting a TikTok dance with Helga." Who ruined the cake? Wendy. Take a look out the window. The moon is not full. Busted. The next morning, Helga wakes up earlier than Elsa and checks her feed. Breaking news: a legendary thief ran away from a nearby prison and now creeps around the town. He's a talented shapeshifter, so no one knows for sure what he might look like. Suddenly, Helga hears someone ringing on the door. She opens and faces 2 guys who introduce themselves. Bob is a gardener from a nearby park, and Peter is a garbage man. Both guys want to use a bathroom, so they ask Helga to let them in. But only one of them is safe to invite over. Can you guess who? Bob is wearing clothes with red stains, but he's also holding a brush, so he was probably just painting a fence. Let's take a closer look at Peter's facial hair. One mustache has come unglued. It's fake. So he must be the runaway criminal from the news.
You just entered a riddle-solving competition. The game show host shows you the first riddle you have to answer. Take a look at the image. Who do you think will be able to make it all the way across the line? Let's face it, it's the man on the left. Even though it looks like he's having a hard time carrying such heavy things, the weight is evenly distributed between his 2 hands, so he'll probably make it through without any problem. For your next challenge, the game show host shows you a picture of sinking boats. Which boat do you think will sink first? The first boat has 2 holes in it, but somehow it has way less water inside. The second boat only has 1 hole, but look at the amount of water that got inside. It's definitely the second boat that's going to sink first. Since you passed the first 2 rounds, the third one gets a bit harder. Ken was riding on his rollerblades when he fell down and hurt his head. He woke up in the hospital only to find that 3 Barbies were waiting for him. Take a look at the image. Can you figure out which Barbie is actually Ken's girlfriend? This is a tricky one. It can't be the third Barbie, because the real Barbie would never wink at Ken. It's usually him that does the flirty things. It's also not the second Barbie, because she would never put makeup in front of him. So this leaves us the first Barbie, who must be his girlfriend. The Finn is a famous hostel in Spain. It's especially famous for its fun showers. But hey, something doesn't look right in this image. Take a look and try to guess what it is. The woman on the right is squeezing a ketchup bottle instead of a shampoo bottle. That's definitely weird, huh? For the final rounds, the host picked out a few written riddles for you. The first one is, I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. Am I a microphone, a phone, or an echo? What would you say? The answer is an echo. I'm not alive, but I can grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. What am I? A tree, fire, or clouds? The correct answer is fire. Way to go if you chose that. Matthew works in the same company as Jean. He's had a crush on her for months and has been trying to impress her in any way he can think of. That's why he decided to take part in the Brain Challenge, a contest his company organizes once a year. By saying yes, he had to answer a bunch of expert-level questions and solve some pretty difficult riddles. For the first round, he had to crack a rebus puzzle. Take a look at the piece of paper they gave him. Can you guess the answer? The answer was invisible string. Nice! For the next round, they took Matthew to a room full of random stuff. His task was to find a specific object. As a clue, they gave him a piece of paper that said, "What goes up when the rain goes down?" Look around and help him find the object. It was that red and blue umbrella over there. For the final round, Matthew had to solve an AI riddle. If he answered it correctly, he would win the contest's main prize and probably Jean's heart. The riddle said, "I have 1,000 needles, but I do not sew. What am I?" Can you guess what he answered? The correct answer is a porcupine. Alfred is a supermodel, and he just landed his dream job. The biggest magazine in the country invited him to be on the cover of their latest issue. On the day of the photo shoot, he arrived early in the studio. After finishing with hair and makeup, he looked in the mirror and screamed, "Oh no!" His skin was all red. It looked like he was having some serious allergic rash. He called all the assistants he had seen earlier that day to interrogate them. Amy, the photographer's assistant, said she had been told Alfred was allergic to peanuts, so she made sure to only buy safe snacks. Bo, the makeup artist, said he hadn't touched Alfred's food. He said that right after he had finished his job, he left for a coffee break. Mary, the cleaning lady, said that she knew how sensitive models could be, so that's why she only used organic and hypoallergenic products to clean his dressing room. Alfred immediately knew who had contributed to his rash. Can you figure it out too? It was definitely Bo. Sure, he didn't have access to Alfred's food, but he was the only one who touched Alfred's face that day. Liv was recording a dance routine for her social media page when a huge portal opened up and swallowed her whole. The next thing she knew, she was stuck inside a big cavern. Out of the blue, a great genie appeared. He told her that she would only be allowed to leave if she figured a way out by herself. As soon as he disappeared, she saw that there were 3 buttons on the wall. There was a red, a yellow, and a green button. On the floor, there was a note that read, TDUPT RNOR EHEB SST. She clicked one of the buttons and managed to open a hidden door on the wall. Can you guess which button she chose? The red button. She unscrambled the words on the note and discovered it read, "Press the red button." As soon as she pressed the button, Liv was transported into a virtual reality world. An artificial intelligence greeted her and showed her 3 doors. The AI told her that there was only one door that would lead her to freedom. It told her that behind the first door, there were hungry Pac-Men waiting for someone to walk inside. Behind the second door, there were cursed rollerblades. Once you put them on, you would never be able to take them off. Plus, They had a will of their own and ended up taking you to some pretty dark places. Behind the last door, there were flying fuzzy creatures with laser eyes that burn anything they came into contact with. Which door do you think Liv should choose to escape? Well, she should pick the second door because she wouldn't be obligated to put on the pair of rollerblades. She could walk past them and straight to her freedom. During the time she was gone, Liv noticed that someone had stolen her laptop. It had all of her social media content in it. She figured it must have been one of her roommates, so she decided to take a look around the house to try to find it. Take a look at these images. The first room belongs to Jill. The second one belongs to Rachel, and the third one belongs to Amy. Can you figure out who stole Liv's laptop? If you look closely, Rachel's cat is sleeping on top of something that really looks like a laptop. It must have been her. On a hot summer day, Marjorie decided to go to the public swimming pool. As soon as she arrived there, she ran into 3 close friends: Sarah, Raven, and Donna. One of these women just gave birth to triplets. Can you guess who? It was Donna. If you look closely at her wrist, she's wearing 3 DIY bracelets with the word Mom written on them. Sam was backpacking through Latin America when he stopped at a restaurant to get some lunch. When he walked inside, he immediately spotted something weird. One of the customers is definitely not human. Can you guess who? It's the guy on the counter. Look, he's charging his hand on the counter socket. He must be a robot or something.
Now, Carol was invited to a Halloween party in an abandoned house. Her friends asked if she was up for a challenge, and she said yes. Soon enough, she was locked inside a room. In this room, there was 1 door and 3 light switches next to it. Behind the door was an empty closet with nothing but a light bulb. Her task was to figure out which switch controls the light bulb inside the closet. She could flip the switches in whatever way she wanted, but once she opened the door, she couldn't touch the switches anymore. After some minutes of thinking, she was able to get it right. How did Carol do it? Okay, let's go step by step. She flipped switch number 1 and then waited a few minutes. She flipped it back to off and then immediately flipped switch number 2. Then she opened the door and checked the light. The bulb was off, so she discovered that it wasn't switch number 2 that controlled the light. So she decided to touch the bulb to test if it was hot or cold. If the bulb had been cold, that would have meant that switch number 3 controlled it. But the bulb was hot. So that meant that switch number 1 controlled 1. Way to go, Carol! To get back to the party, Carol had to solve another riddle. There were 2 hourglasses in front of her. One hourglass measures 7 minutes, and the other one measures 4 minutes. She needed to time 9 minutes using both hourglasses. How could she do it? First, she turned both hourglasses at the same time. By the time the 4-minute glass finished, there were still 3 minutes left on the other one. She flipped the 4-minute glass again. When the 7-minute glass was empty, there was 1 minute left on the other glass. And once the 4-minute glass emptied again, there was 1 minute's worth of sand at the bottom half of the 7-minute timer. She flipped it over again, so there was 1 minute worth of sand on the top of the glass. And when the 7-minute timer finally emptied again, 9 minutes elapsed in total. Now look at this party scene. Everyone is dancing in their Halloween costumes and having an enjoyable time. You've been told that one of these people is a real vampire. Can you figure out who it is? Let's see. The guy on the left is drinking something red, but he has a shadow, so he can't be a real vampire. The second lady looks creepy, could be her, but if you look closely at the mirror on the wall, you'll see her reflection, so it can't be her. And we can also see the reflection of the fourth guy in the mirror. This only leaves one lady left. She must be the real vampire. Anna sat down to watch her favorite TV show. She made some popcorn, turned on the TV, and nestled comfortably to binge-watch an entire season. Her cat Pepper sat down next to her, but after 5 minutes of screen time, Anna suddenly passed out. Look at the image. Can you guess what happened there? Anna's cat Pepper got scared with the loud thump that came from the TV. It jumped on top of Anna and it scared the life out of her. That's why she passed out. Brendan was camping alone in a remote location. He left his campsite and hiked 3 miles south. Then he turned east and hiked for another 3 miles. After that, he turned north and hiked for another 3 miles. After walking 9 miles, he was back to the exact same point from where he had left off. Plus, he got there just in time to find a bear trying to open his tent and steal his food. Look at the image. Can you guess the only place in the world where Brendan could be right now? It's the North Pole. That's the only place where you can hike for 3 miles south, east, and north and end up exactly where you left off. Fraser bought a cozy home in Vancouver. On a sunny day, he decided to take his dog out for a walk. When he let his dog off the leash, it ran extremely far away from him. At some point, the dog was opposite him across a huge lake. Fraser called his dog, who managed to cross safely to the other side of the lake without getting wet or using a boat. Can you guess how the dog managed to do it? Well, that's a trick question, but the dog could easily cross the lake since it was frozen. Your best friend invited you for brunch at a place called Wally's World. As soon as you arrive there, the hostess tells you that you need to solve a riddle to get inside. She tells us that there is only one rule at Wally's World. Over there is pizza with cheese, but no pizza with sausage. There is pepper, but no salt. There is a door, yet no entrance or exit. With this information, can you guess what the law is? Everything in Wally's World must contain double letters. So things such as pizza, pepper, and cheese are allowed inside. Whew! That sure wasn't obvious, huh? On a snowy winter afternoon, Dr. Brown was resting in front of the fireplace. Suddenly, somebody threw a snowball at his window. The hit was so strong that the glass shattered. Dr. Brown stood up just in time to see 3 neighborhood boys running away. They were brothers with the names John Smith, Mark Smith, and Dave Smith. The next day, a paper note was left on Dr. Brown's door. There it was written, a question mark, then Smith. He threw the snowball. Dr. Brown knew immediately which brother had done it. Can you figure it out too? It was Mark. You see, the note said, question Mark Smith. He threw the snowball. But the boys were clever and put a question mark instead to test Dr. Brown's detective abilities. Henry was backpacking through Brazil by himself. One evening at around 8 p.m., he got very hungry and decided to look for a cozy restaurant to have some dinner. He walked into a traditional restaurant only to find a customer and a waiter arguing over something. The customer said that he had ordered clam soup, while the waiter was saying he had only ordered a cup of tea. Henry saw something that immediately showed him who was lying. Can you find out too? The customer is lying. Behind him, there's a huge sign that says the restaurant only serves soup from 1 to 4 p.m. Since it was 8 p.m. in the evening, the waiter would have never accepted the customer's order in the first place. Cheryl ran into her house extremely worried. "I set off as soon as I heard the news," she told the police officer. "I was at my parents' house in another town. What's happened to my husband?" "Well," the police said, "somebody hurt Mr. Moffat, and he ended up in the hospital. He's going to be okay, but we still need to find out who did this to him." The police officer has questioned 3 suspects so far. Mr. Moffat's secretary said, "I was sent to visit Mr. Moffat's business partner in the morning. Some important documents needed signatures." The cook said, "I haven't left the kitchen today. Mr. Moffat wanted me to prepare a meal for him and his wife." The housekeeper said, "I didn't hear anything today. I was doing some household chores all day long. After that, I was so tired, I decided to take a nap." The police officer realized who the culprit was in no time. Can you figure out who did it? It was the cook. Mr. Moffat didn't ask him to cook anything for his wife, since she had been out of town all along.